Today's topic is on fundraising and finances. And the first, like, if there's only one thing that I want you to take home from today, the biggest thing that I think to think about is that fundraising and finances, there's two sides of the same coin, basically. You can be raising money, which obviously everyone, every chapter wants to have as much money as possible so that they can do whatever they want to do. And that might be through traditional fundraisers, asking for funds. Initiation fees are the most common fundraiser for a lot of chapters. They get most of their fees through that. So that's very common. Could also be funding from the student government or from the college itself, or also TBP grants. But the other side of the coin is that you can always consider how you can reduce costs. How you can do basically the same event as you would want to do as your dream event, but cheaper. So like using a potluck instead of a dinner, or finding alternative ways to get free events done. This might be done with some collaborations with other clubs on campus. Maybe you include a small fee for more expensive events, or find a sponsor to cover some part of an event. But it's always something to consider is like, if your issue is simply funding, consider whether you should focus your efforts on raising money or reducing costs, or maybe both. Some popular fundraising ideas that we commonly see in chapters include concession stands at sports events. Also, some bigger chapters are able to get away with doing a TBP store, where they actually have a physical store basically on campus where they can sell like popular snacks, drinks. My chapter at one point in time sold engineering paper, so because it was commonly required for courses at my school, and the options at the bookstore were quite expensive. So we were able to buy and sell those for cheaper than that and made a good profit from that. Also, company donations, getting a company to donate to your organization. Alumni are a great resource for getting this done. And then probably the most common that you might be familiar with is restaurant fundraising. So going to Chipotle, Krispy Kreme, Panda Express, etc. And for this, there's usually some kind of program where you have a specific day, specific hours that day. And if anyone goes there and say that they're supporting TBP, then a percentage of the profit goes to your chapter, basically. And those are quite common. I do want to really quick point out that I think like the most underrated fundraiser that requires the least amount of effort on your end generally is simply asking for money. Go to your dean, go to alumni. If there's a TBP alumni chapter in the area, reach out to them and just ask, hey, we need money for this purpose. We want to do this thing. This requires, like I said, the least amount of effort generally on your end, and can have a very significant payload. So highly recommend, if you're really strapped for funds and you don't have that much effort that you can put in, maybe you don't have that many officers, not that many members, something like that, consider simply asking for the money. And then, like I said, on the other side of the coin, consider some low-cost events that you can do. Community service events are, in my opinion, some of the best events that a TBP chapter can do, and they're generally free. So like, volunteering at your local food bank or pantry, doing Adopt a Highway, generally free. Online volunteering, many different things. If you just simply search on Google online volunteering, you'll get a long list of things you can do. Tutoring, those are just some examples. Socials, there's plenty of ideas that you can get from here that are pretty low effort. Professional development, simply bringing in alumni to do panels or talks. That's generally free unless you want to provide food, which is generally pretty cheap. And very effective. You can get some really great events out of that. Image boosting as well. Some resources that we are going to post later this week in the TBP Discord. If you haven't joined that yet, can I get one of my fellow volunteers to toss that link in the chat? But we'll toss these in there, and we'll hopefully be able to email these out as well. Tower to Pi provides some information on initiation fees. Like I mentioned, one of the most common ways that chapters raise funds is simply have a fee that is greater than the $55 that you owe to nationals per person, and then you raise that money and you can do with it what you will. We're also going to send some resources from the Student Advisory Board Chapter Toolkit. One is a funding request letter template for the dean. Like I said, ask for money. It's one of the easiest ways to get it done. So I highly recommend that one. Also, they have some cost-free events and a guide to budgeting events that I recommend checking out as well. And then some Tower to Pi grants I mentioned in a previous slide. So there's 3. One is the greater interest in government, which it doesn't actually have to be government related, but basically these are grants that are specifically oriented towards community service. So you can get money for those types of events through that. There's the K-12 mindset program, which gives you money for K-12 outreach events. So if you want to be more academically driven in that regard, or academic outreach, that's a great way to get that type of thing funded. And then Engineering Futures is a free professional development program through Tower to Pi that I also really highly recommend checking out. So 3 different opportunities for some free money or free events through Tower to Pi.
I think our most successful fundraiser was actually one of those like restaurant percentage nights. We had one at a chain called Mod Pizza. And we set it up so it was the night of like one of our general body meetings. So it's really easy for everyone to just be together and then go get pizza right after. So we ended up raising quite a bit of money with that. That was good.
I'll say, so from my past experiences, one of the things we did was buy insomnia cookies or something like that, and in bulk and sell them back. That was just a quick event that we could put together. But something we didn't do that I wish we had done, and I know I heard this a lot at convention, was to do bulk t-shirt sales, buy and sell back. You could make t-shirts with the logo, get it approved by headquarters, buy those in bulk, and then sell them back for a nominal fee, and make some profit for your chapter that way. I think that's a pretty low-hanging fruit type of event.
Chapter is entirely self-funded in that we use initiation fees as our main way of getting money. So our initiation fees are $125 per person. So we give 55 to HQ, and the other 70 we use towards events for the year and whatever else we're doing. So that's our main method of getting money. We have other things where we'll get money from the school through our College of Engineering Student Council, which will give up money if you have like receipts at the end of the year for things you've paid for, then they'll reimburse you if you have the receipts on hand. So we usually get like $500 a semester from that. And then we also have IRA funds that are allocated to engineering orgs on campus. So that's a portion of our money comes from that as well, but that will usually go towards travel related things. So going to convention, going to conferences, that sort of issue. But yeah, most of our money comes from initiation fees.
I was going to mention initiation fees for us. I know that, with the rising costs of operating a chapter, one easy way to get a few more dollars per initiate and, maybe even promote membership is to have those initiation fees a little higher, and then you can hold your initiation banquet for the following semester based off those funds, save up a few semesters and help future e-boards out. And I think that's a great way without doing too much work to boost your initiation, to boost your membership rates, and to keep your chapter sustainable.
I think for us, the initiation fee is probably the main source of income as well. We only have ours set at 75, so we don't get too much money from it, but it's enough to cover, some basic events. I know in the past, I'm just reading this comment. I know in the past my chapter has done concessions at like our football and basketball games. Unfortunately, and I think that was a really good way for us to raise money, but unfortunately, they made it so you have to get a bunch of different like certifications and stuff before you can do it. Now, which makes it a lot harder to get people into it and doesn't make it as worth it.
So I already mentioned the initiation fees. That's the majority of ours. Another thing that we do is we will buy in bulk regalia from the headquarters store. And what my chapter does is we not only sell it for a little bit of a higher price, but we also rent out stoles and cords because a lot of people just want to use them for when they walk. And so we'll rent out stoles and cords and then wash and reuse the next year. So that's always a good moneymaker. In addition to that, we'll also sell license plate frames and padfolios. So the padfolios come from HQ too. So we buy those in bulk and then resell them. So that's another way that we make some of our money. We sometimes, occasionally, it really depends on the year and it's not like steady per se, but we'll get companies that will donate money. So I know when I was president, Northrop Grumman donated $2,000 to us because we did like a speech and like showed them a bunch of our like projects and stuff that we do for community service and furthering engineering. And then they're like, cool, you guys are awesome. Here's $2,000. So look out for stuff like that. You never know what companies are doing or what they're willing to drop money on. And a lot of that came from our alumni chapter. So like Alan mentioned, if you stay in touch, people will point you in the right direction and say, hey, my company is doing this thing, you should apply. And you might get lucky. My chapter is really big on the frugal with spending and be very cautious with our money standpoint because a lot of our money does come from initiation fees. We will usually spend, the biggest event that we have is usually our barbecue for the College of Engineering that we host for the entire college. And so that'll cost us in the hundreds of dollars, that and then the initiation banquet. But all of our other events are less than $15 each. So we are very frugal with the way we do things. A lot of our events are the ones that you saw on like the screen. We'll do like movie nights, game nights. Now that we have virtual at our disposal, we'll play Scriblio. We'll do like virtual code names, like things like this that don't cost a lot of money. And they're usually big hits because you can show up to a game night with a box of cookies and I guarantee you almost everyone will be content. So that's kind of how we try to make sure we don't have to spend, like our budget is about $15 for a normal event that's not like a giant banquet after initiation and a barbecue. So we try to be as frugal as we can with our costs and not spend money on random things. Like you don't want to buy a really crazy expensive meal when you can do a potluck for Pi Day and everybody brings something pie themed. That's one thing we do. So we make it fun, make people bring stuff. That way we don't have to do anything. But yeah.
We try to be frugal as well and hold game nights or have people contribute in some way with low cost events. I know in the past, one good event that doesn't require much coordination or money is to do a bench shining, to keep your bench on campus shiny and clean, to enhance your images and just get people together. And I know at my undergrad chapter, where I went to my alma mater, we used to do a bench shining and people would come up to us and say, oh, what is this all about? And it was a great conversation starter just to be out there.
Like the others were saying, we also try to be frugal with our spending, try to have cheap events. We like game nights, movie nights, sports days where we just go to a local park, bring a soccer ball or something, kick it around. Another way we've been able to like reduce costs is we like to have pizza at most of our general body meetings. I think it helps engage members and get them to actually show up. And if we have like a alumni, especially a top 8 alumni who's speaking for us at that meeting, we'll often ask if they'd be willing to help out with the cost of the pizza, and oftentimes they are. So that's helpful.
One on my end was for a chapter that I didn't attend, but I advised New Mexico Beta for their initiation banquet. Usually in the past, they would go to like an Olive Garden or something like that, and they would end up costing 25 to 30 per person, which was a lot, especially for that chapter. But one thing we tried doing that was actually better received than Olive Garden was holding the banquet just in a separate room, still on campus. And then instead of getting catering or anything like that, each of the officers chipped in, and we were able to do a like make your own burrito type deal, where like one officer did beans and or prepared the beans and rice, one got the tortillas and stuff like that, one did the lettuce and tomatoes and salsa and stuff like that, and we like split the load that way. And the cost for that for like 40 people was like, I want to say like $115. So super cheap, super affordable, and like I said, very well received. People really liked it. So one thing to consider for things like that is if you can do a lot of the like effort yourself, it requires more on your end, but at the same time, it saves you a ton of money.
For me, it was probably the sports days that I mentioned. Yeah, it's really nice. Just you get a lot of people together, and all you need is, someone's own sports equipment and some green space on campus. Works out really well.
I'm going to do 2 just because they're slightly different. The first one is virtual and the second one is in person for those of you who do remote things. Still great idea. You can still do that. So virtual, our favorite is Gartic Phone. If you have not played before, it is an amazing game. Great way to know candidates, which makes it really good for when you're trying to do character evaluations and stuff. You learn a lot of cool things about people that you didn't normally know. So that's a fun game that it's free and I think it goes up to 30 people at a time. So you have plenty of space for any prospective people that you want to invite. In person, I think I'd have to say that our game night, we have a board game night usually, and we'll do it the same day. We'll put our chapter requires you to fill out like candidate forms. So it's like where you fill out your community service and you turn it in to us. And so on the day that we're collecting all those forms, we'll do a board game night so people can just walk in and walk out as they go. And all the officers just bring 1 or 2 board games that they have at their house. So you'll have like a game of Uno going on, a game of codenames going on, a game of like something, something easy, fun where people can come and go as they please. So that's definitely, those are our 2 most fun and effective free events. And we haven't had a problem with like the fee thing. Because one thing that we always say, we make sure to say in our information sessions is that if money is the reason you're not going to join, please talk to us, because we do like payment plans and all that stuff, and HQ can set you up with a couple of things too. I know they give like, money here and there if you need it for certain students and whatnot, they ask. So like we will figure something out, but don't let money be the reason you don't join Tabita Pi. So when we say that, we get a lot of people that do payment plans with us, and over the course of like the next couple of semesters will pay us. We just make sure we get the 55 up front, and then everything else can sort of happen when it happens. But that's a good way to make sure you don't scare them off, is to work with them. The thing with candidates is to be as flexible as possible. When people see that you're flexible, you're willing to accommodate, you actually care about them, then they're more likely to join and not just wander away, because they know that you actually care to make sure that they are involved in society.
At New Mexico Gamma, where I was initiated, it was we were in the process of increasing our fee, but at the same time our membership also actually increased, and it's because we focused on making sure that the initiation process was done very well. And I second what Kavya said, like a big thing is make sure that you're saying, hey, if this is the reason why you're not joining, talk to us. Like specifically that needs to be in your initiation process early on during your info sessions or whatever you use. And for us, what we would do is we would offer first to half it. So ours was 100. We'd offer to make it 50. So we're only losing $5. That's not a huge loss for our chapter. And then if they couldn't do that, we would offer for it to be 0. Usually if they refused or if they said the 50 wasn't enough, they simply weren't that interested and didn't end up joining anyway. But that's how we kind of worked on it. I can say for my chapter, we once tried a Chipotle fundraiser and barely got any money from that. And I'm honestly not sure why. We thought we got the word out as best we could, but we barely made any from that.
Us too. I don't know what it is with the restaurant stuff, but we just never succeeded. And we get people to go, but they just, you get like such a small fraction that it just wasn't worth it.
Like I said earlier, we've had successful restaurant fundraisers, but we've also had unsuccessful ones. I think the one that was unsuccessful was a lot because of when we tried to time it and also like the restaurant we chose. I think the unsuccessful one was also Chipotle. I think for some reason they take a higher percentage or something, but so if you are like looking into doing that, I would say, search around for different restaurants. Different restaurants have different requirements, different percentages they'll give you, and really try to plan it around some other event too. That way you can get more engagement. Other fundraisers we tried that flopped were we were trying to sell t-shirts to make in bulk to make a little bit of money, and just did not have enough people interested to get them for any cheap price. So just really did not work. And now I have a bunch of extra t-shirts sitting in our office.
I know that for us, like our student council has monthly, bi-weekly, I don't know, something like that meetings. And we'll always send a rep and they talk about fundraising stuff up front, like how they're giving away money for X thing. But if you're gonna go explicitly ask, I would have like a list prepared on stuff that you plan to use it for, usually in buckets, if you could do that. I know a lot of school related things, like especially when we get IRA money, like state money, then it'll ask us to divvy up the expenses in different buckets like travel and like school supplies / like office supply stuff. So like if we're doing, if we want to spend money on like stamps for mailing envelopes or printing stuff, that's a separate bucket. So if you have things broken down, I feel like it's a lot easier for people to give you money for those things because they know what bucket it might fall under if it's restricted to a certain type of activity or something that you're trying to do. So have something like that. A lot of people don't know what Tau Pi is. So at the student government level, if you can preach, that goes back to sort of the whole image thing. If you could preach your name, get your name out there, if the student government knows who you are, then they're more likely to be like, yes, this org does really cool things. They either tutor people or do community service, whatever you do. If you can popularize that and say, yeah, we're known for XYZ thing, then people are more likely to give you money because they know you're going to use it towards a beneficial cause, rather than just give you money to buy food to feed hungry college students. But yeah, that's one thing I say. If you can split it into buckets and just be ready to preach, then that's a good way to be prepared.
They can come up with some presentation or short speech on promoting to the dean if he or she is unaware of what Tau Beta Pi is, or even if that person is a member of Tau Beta Pi, just going through and showing you did your homework to say what the organization is about, what value it has on campus, what activities you're putting together, some history, just a little spiel for the dean to show that this is meaningful to you and could help the school out in a way, and then the funds could hopefully flow from there.
it, you know, in terms of what you're asking for, if you want to buy specific things or if it's food or whatever, if you can show them, like, you know, like when we would ask for funds and we needed to buy something, we would print out the like price and description on Amazon for the item, for each item that we were asking. Or if it was food, we would print the menu and present it to them and show this is exactly how much we want for this reason. And I think besides just showing them this is, yeah, this is like, you know, this is exactly what this is going to go for, it shows that you're really prepared, and it's going to leave a really good impression on them, and they're much more likely, whether it's the dean or the student government, to give you funds, in my experience.